All right. Hi, everyone. It is 6 o'clock. We really appreciate you guys being here. We're your U-46 science staff. And so I'm going to really quickly ask our science staff here to unmute and introduce themselves. First, I'm Deb McMullen. I am your science coordinator. We are overseas actually pre-K through 12th grade science. So we support all students enrolled in U-46 schools with their science, and then we support all of the teachers who teach science. So in total, it's probably about 1,500 teachers, something like that, that we support. So Frankie?
Let's see. I'm Frankie Valencia, and I am an instructional science coach for secondary. That means middle school and high school. And I know that one of Mrs. McNally's students is on here now, and I recognize your name. You may have heard from me throughout the year.
Go ahead, Peggy.
And I am Peggy Hernandez. I'm a U-46 teacher, and I'm the teacher in the planetarium. So my classroom is the planetarium. I have virtual courses for teachers set up. Again, I do a lot of teacher support. And I'm doing virtual visits to the planetarium this year for teachers to sign up for once they've gotten into their unit for Earth and space science.
All right, Vince.
I'm Vince Fosco, and I am the K-6 instructional science coach. I work under Deb and alongside Frankie and Sarah.
And Sarah is incognito at the moment, but Sarah is the glue that keeps all of us together. She is, I think she goes by a title of secretary, but really she is the person who helps make all these beautiful graphics that you see and helps us with scheduling. And so she's really, really an amazing part of our team that keeps all of us rolling. So here are the goals for this evening. We want to provide you with an overview of the U-46 STEM Expo. And we want to tell you how it's going to be different this year, how we're going to be doing it in a socially distanced way in terms of we're going to actually do it virtually. So we wanted to kind of explain what that's going to look like. We also want to introduce you to 8 science and engineering practices and also 7 cross-cutting concepts that your students are going to be utilizing or students will be utilizing to do these projects, and also introduce you to those skills that they're actually using in their classrooms right now. And then we also want to give you some ideas for projects. And so what we're going to do over the next 4 Wednesdays is introduce you to a cross-cutting concept and give you some ideas for things you can do. So today you're going to actually hear about cause and effect, and our staff is going to do that for you after we get done explaining how the expo is going to look this year. But next week on Wednesday, we have 2 special guests. So Miss Peggy Hernandez, our planetarium teacher, is going to be doing a special program around patterns. And then structure and function, we have a college professor from Roosevelt University who's going to be doing some really cool lab stuff. And from what she seems to be planning, it looks like we're going to be live in a college lab, and you're going to get to see some of that. So we hope you come back next week, 6 to 7 o'clock. So what to expect in the STEM Expo? The first thing that we want you to know is we've changed the date. Typically this is being done, is not being done in February. It's going to be done in March this year, March 20th. So please mark your calendars. Students will still register via a Google form starting in December. We'll be forwarding those forms to their schools, but it will also be available on our website. It will be available on Facebook, Twitter, all those kinds of places that you can find and register. The event will actually be hosted via Zoom. It will be a Zoom meeting. We're going to have individual breakout rooms, so your students would register. They will be given a link to the Zoom meeting. You'll be able to, if you're a parent or a guardian, the student will be able to give the link. There'll be instructions to how to give the link to an audience. And so, you know, the audience members are going to be invited to come and watch the presentation as well. If your student is not available on March 20th, or let's say they prefer not to do this Zoom event, describing it, that's okay. They're allowed to do that. They would just submit a video, and we would still provide them with information and about their project to give them some feedback. Here's what it would look like on March 20th if your student decides to participate in the program. Let's say that your student or the team of students working together decides to sign up for the 9 to 9:30 time slot. So there'll be 30 minutes for each of these projects to be presented. They would load in with the guests, the invited guests, at 8:55, so about 5 minutes ahead of time. They'd come into a virtual room just like this. We would verify the students and the guests, and then we would send them to one of about 12 or 13 breakout rooms. Once they're in the breakout room at their 9 o'clock start time, we would then, we have some people that are gonna be facilitating each of those rooms. They'd be making some introductions as to who your thinking partners might be, though that's kind of a fancy word for judges. And then also introducing your particular project. From 9:05 to 9:15, your student would be doing their actual presentation. And because we're not going to be in person, if you've done it before, you know that you get a trifold board. This year, we're going to be doing it differently. You're going to be providing some Google slides. So you put together a presentation that will last about 10 minutes. And it will go, you'll be showing it into this virtual room to a couple of judges and then a room facilitator. From 9:15 to 9:25, the judges are going to ask questions and provide feedback in a thinking kind of way, thinking partner kind of way. And then from 9:25 to 9:30, the process ends. We'll be putting you back into the main room, saying thank you to you, and then sending you on your way for the day. One thing we want to really talk to you guys about is this is not a judged event. You see the word judge on the slide, but it's not a judged event. For us, the STEM Expo is really about inspiration. It's about the work that scientists do. So you're going to come, you're going to present your scientific findings, and you're going to share those findings with some thinking partners who are then going to give you some feedback. So it's not necessarily a judged event, but you're definitely going to get some feedback from some knowledgeable people. We'll take questions as well. If you guys see anything in the chat, just let me know that if I should stop and answer right away. But some students are going to be invited, some students or teams are going to be invited to feature their project through April and May. So I guess you could think of that as we're going to take some of the projects that we think are really good, really interesting, and that we think other people would like, and we're going to feature those projects on in our social media venues. So how would you put together one of these projects? That's kind of the crux of what we're trying to help you guys with in these sessions. First, you would identify a phenomenon or a problem you want to solve, or you would propose a solution. And a phenomenon is simply an observable event. You can go to if you friend us, and by the way, in the chat, I'm going to have Miss Hernandez put this in for you again. There's a link in the chat for these slides. These are all clickable links that take you to resources. So one of the links is you can friend us on Facebook, and each morning on my walk to work, I look for an interesting phenomenon to help give you ideas for some projects you could do. And so there's an example here, why are the streetlights still on? And in it, we show you the phenomenon, we talk about the essential question you might ask, and then we go through the different parts of our science curriculum, science and engineering practices, the content, and cross-cutting concepts. We also have a couple of other links over here for you. So on this side, you're going to see links. These are other places that you can go to get more idea to help you with selecting a phenomenon, solving a problem, or proposing a solution. Step 2 is that you would think about, what do you wonder about those things? What do you wonder about that phenomenon? Or what do you wonder about the problem that you want to solve? It's really the first step to our scientific inquiry process, and it's where you're going to start thinking about, what am I really interested in knowing or learning about? And again, we have a couple more slides, links there to take you to some more resources. Step 3, what do you think? To help you with thinking, we recommend that you create a model. Now, this is a 2-dimensional model, most likely. It could be a 3-dimensional, but basically on paper, you're going to think about what you're wondering, and you're going to propose ways to solve it. You're going to propose outcomes of what you think are going to happen. And this sort of picture or model is going to be what helps you design your scientific process. Again, we provided you with a link to help support you in creating that process. Here's where we start getting into planning and carrying out your investigation. This is step 4. How can you test what it is you're wondering about? How do you test your solution to the problem that you're interested in? So in this case, you're going to be actually carrying out an investigation, and the idea is you want to study something and find the answer. Sometimes we don't find the answer in science, but hopefully you find an answer or you discover that your solution is really, really good. The step 5 part is really the whole crux of the whole idea of what we're trying to do at the STEM Expo. This is where you share with us what you learned and how you learned it and what were your favorite parts of the investigation that you conducted. So in step 5, this is where you communicate everything that you learned. And again, we have a video there to support you through that process. So now, when you register, we will be sending your student lots of information and resources, and in there will be a set of slides. There'll be a slide deck, a Google slide deck, that is essentially the outline for what we would like to have students turn in. The slide deck will be pretty plain like this, so your student or you can go ahead and, well, your student would then decorate this to carry out the communication part of what they learned in their project. So we'll give them a set template of slides. You can add slides if you wanted to, but these are the general ideas or the general recommendations we're making of what to communicate. Do remember though, your presentation, you should practice it, and it should only be 10 minutes because we've only got that 30-minute window to get everything done.
Deb, do you want to show that as a sample right now? I think it would make more sense if they could see what that template looks like.
Sure. I actually don't, can we come back to that? Because I think the is not in for this one. But yeah, we can definitely show you guys that to give you guys an idea of what it is that you're gonna be looking for.
Or when you're at your end, I have it up so I could just share my screen.
Okay, let me do that right now. I'll stop sharing and you can.
Okay.
All right, you go ahead and show.
Can you see it?
Yes, we can see it.
Yes, you can see it.
Okay. So the whole presentation is different in that it's on a slide deck and it's not a trifold board. And I think some people are really going to like this and might even find they prefer it. Other people might prefer doing it in a trifold version. It's the same thing, only we make a template for the students so that they're basically going to take the slide deck and fill it in with what they've wondered, questioned, what their investigation was, what their explanation is. And the first page is a title page. Here's page 2. What is your claim? And then the third page in the slide deck, what did you do? So an explanation of what they decided to do actively as part of their investigation or observation. It depends on the age of the student. It depends on how in depth they're going to go. But it could be as simple as an observation series, or it could be a lot more complicated with independent and dependent variables listed and controls listed, and something more formal that an 8th grader or a high schooler might do. The fourth page is the evidence for the claim, because when you're looking at a phenomenon, you're going to come up with some kind of explanation, and you always have to have evidence for your explanation. The 5th page is the thinking that goes behind the scenes to make you think that what you're saying is true. So you have to connect the evidence that you have in whatever you did, your observation, and then connect that to your claim. And what was the reasoning behind that made you think that way? And right now, for pages 6 and 7, we have just something helpful here that lists the scientific practices on the top. And then along the bottom, the cross-cutting concepts that we're really focusing on, that we really want a student to pick a cross-cutting concept that stands out in their investigation, to connect it to their content. And when I say content, I mean the traditional life science earth and space or physical, chemistry, biology, zoology. That's the content. But looking for that cross-cutting concept that actually ends up underlying all types of sciences is what we want to focus on for this year. So this is a helping page at the moment, helping to understand, nothing to fill out there. And then the last page is a summary page. So this is the trifold for this year. It's a slide deck. They'll be able to make their own copy of it, change it, gussy it up, make it pretty, put lots of numbers in there and diagrams. They can take pictures with their any device and put pictures in to help their explanation. And I would assume that most would be more than 7 pages long, because they're going to add in pictures and data, charts, graphs, whatever it is that's in their investigation.
That was wonderful. Thank you. I think that fit really well in there. And we're just trying to make this as succinct, and we're trying to make this as easy and convenient for your student, but also challenging, so that our students know exactly what we want them to do, and so that they get to really showcase their talents. We're excited about the idea that your student could give a link to their grandma or grandpa or aunt, uncle, to come watch the presentation, because I think, you know, sometimes someone might be far away. I know most of my family is in northern Michigan, so I don't get to see them often. And so the chance for them to be able to participate and see the work that the student is doing, I think is kind of exciting. But all of that information with this title, with the template of presentation, of slide deck for them, that will all be available with directions for them, so that we can make this really well organized. So now my computer doesn't want to work.
And they'll get that slide deck when they register.
Yes, thank you. We have put together, we've done some research. We've found a bunch of other resources for you. So as I mentioned, our next one is November 11th, and you'll get to, it won't be so much of us talking through the procedures. It will simply get right to the science starting next week. And we will in a moment here too. But the 11th, we're going to be featuring 2 local scientists. Peggy Hernandez is one of them, and then Erica Schwartz, who's our other scientist from Roosevelt, will be there. But here's a bunch of other resources to give you some ideas of different projects that you might do, because your first thing you've got to figure out is, what is your phenomenon, what is your problem, or what is your solution that you'd like to propose or work through. All right. Very quickly, and I realize that we actually have a document to help you with more details to this, and we'll be sending that out to those of you that registered. But essentially, there are 8 science practices that your student will be working through this project. Now, there might be a step that they don't use. There might be one of these that they don't use. But for the most part, to do a project like this, your student is going to be embedded, and you're going to be working as a student in these 8 science practices. You're going to be asking questions or defining a problem. For sure, that's the very first step. You're going to be developing and using models. You're going to be planning and carrying out an investigation. You're going to be analyzing and interpreting data. You're going to be using mathematics probably and computational skills. You're going to construct explanations and designing solutions. And for sure you'll be doing that because you have to communicate it to us. You're going to engage in argument from evidence, where you're going to have to defend in a way to the thinking partners / judges on that day, like, what were you thinking and why were you thinking that? We might even ask you which of these science practices you enjoyed using the most. In addition to the 8 science and engineering practices, you're also going to be featuring, as we said earlier, cross-cutting concepts of NGSS. So what you're going to find, and we want you to be able to identify through your process, your scientific process, we want you to identify the one, or maybe there's a couple, cross-cutting concepts you're going to focus on. And through the next 3 Wednesdays, we're going to be showing you and giving you examples of all of these. Now today we're going to look at cause and effect. We're going to give you some ideas around the idea of cause and effect. Next week we're going to do patterns, and we're also going to be doing structure and function. And so each Wednesday we're going to have some scientists, some interesting local people. We also have a former U-46 student who's now a paleontologist that's going to be featured. And so each week we're going to be giving you some ideas around the cross-cutting concepts. That gets us to cause and effect. So what we have here first is a link of a video. And I'm not going to show you this video, but this video is in there to help you, whether you're a parent, a student, or a teacher, better understand what is meant by a cross-cutting concept. Cause and effect is the first one that we're working on. And I'm going to show you a video, and then I'm going to hand it over to my esteemed colleague, Frankie Valencia. So here comes the video.
Okay, before you start the video, Deb,
Yes.
hold on a second. Before you start the video, I just want to ask them to watch it carefully. And we're going to take a look at what the bird is doing. So we need a careful observation. It's called the drinking bird or the dippy bird, whatever you prefer to call it. And what we're doing right now is called an observational investigation. We're taking a look at it. And as you are watching it, you can put your observations into the chat. So look at it very carefully. What do you see? And as you're watching it, you can add your observations to the chat. Okay, Deb, go ahead.
Okay, I'm going to try and get through this. I apologize, and it's a little, the video is not cooperating with me because of the advertisement. So let me get rid of this.
Your voice is getting kind of wonky. I think it might be your Wi-Fi.
Oh, you thinking? Okay. Sorry about this ad.
Did you enable sound?
I did. I have it because of the ad.
Because if you do the sound, it makes it really hard for your computer to keep up sometimes. Oh, there we go.
Carefully watch the birds. And if you have any observations, put them in the chat. Let's see, I see Peggy says that they're moving their heads towards the water. And Vince says the bird is drinking the water. What other things do you notice? They go at different speeds.
I don't want to mess the video by putting in chat, but I'm noticing colors in their bodies.
The colors, right. What colors are you noticing?
Well, I see red and I see blue in one.
Okay. See a red one and a blue one. And let me get the chat. One has red, one has blue water. There's liquid in the body. As we're observing, we're trying to figure out the phenomenon. So there's water in the cup and the water is clear.
Some bob and some don't.
Some are bobbing and some are not. Their beaks are getting wet. Two birds have blue hats, one has green. The water in their neck keeps filling up. Observations.
They all
Any
have,
other observations?
they all have green tail feathers.
Oh, the tail feathers were all green. So that's a phenomenon. A phenomenon is an everyday situation, an everyday occurrence that we want to figure out. We want to figure out what's going on and what happens. So that's, as we go through, we look at it, we talk about the things that we're seeing, we are doing an observational investigation. Now, as you were looking at the birds and making observations, did you see anything that was a pattern? A pattern is anything that you see repeated over and over. If you saw anything that was a pattern, you could put that into the chat as well. Up in the top, you see that a pattern could be anything we see repeatedly or we hear. Let's see. Their heads went up and down, so that's a pattern. Going up and down is a pattern. Tipping up and down is a pattern. Let's see. Emily says they all took turns drinking. Anything else? Now, oh, sorry. When we make patterns, we often think about, when we figure out patterns, we often think about what causes that pattern. So the next thing is cause and effect. And you can move in the slide down to cause and effect. Okay, the next one, I think, or actually we're down two. So cause and effect is the topic of today. It's one of the cross-cutting concepts that you'll learn about as you go through these weeks of the STEM Expo Kick-Off. And with cause and effect, we start to take a look at the reasons for the patterns. What causes the drinking bird to dip? It's also called a dipping bird. Some people call it a dipping bird and others call it a drinking bird. So what causes the drinking bird to keep dipping? Why doesn't it stop? What is the cause of it? What is the effect? I actually have one here that's, you can't really see it. I could hold it up here, but this one, I set it out, oops, it just went upside down. There it is. So I set it out this morning with a cup and it's been going all day long. I have two of them and they have been going all day long drinking my glass of water here. They haven't stopped. They continue to go over and over and over again. So what do you think? Oh no, I just dropped one and I spilled the water all over my lap. Okay. So I see a comment here. So maybe the water in the cup is hot and that is when the head goes up. That's a possibility. The water in the head is hot and that's when the head goes up. Thank you. What else do you think might be a pattern that you see? Okay, so we're looking for causes. I'm sorry, I'm talking about patterns and we're talking about causes and effects. I'm getting all wet here. So
Take a second to dry. You can't do two things at once.
I have my paper towel. So when we see a pattern, we're looking for the cause and effect. So Peggy said that the head gets hot and it goes down into the water. What are some other cause and effect that you might consider here?
I'm really wondering about it looked to me like the water in the bottom of the bird would go up into the neck of the bird. And then when it would tip back down, then the water was gone.
Okay, so the cause would be, the effect would be that it would tip down and the cause is that the water goes up in the neck.
Yes.
And that's kind of what I just said too. The water in the bulb, like in the bottom end,
Hmm.
it does go up that tube to his head. So maybe when the water gets into his head, that's when it tips.
Any other
Which often
cause?
leads to more questions because I'm thinking about that and then I'm thinking,
Right.
but wait a minute, what makes the water go into the tube in the first place? So
Well, Peggy, that's actually the next thing. If you look on the next slide is asking questions. So what questions do you have? What do you wonder? So in science, in the NGSS format, we start with the phenomenon and we make our observations. We look for patterns, we look for cause effect, and then we start to question. What questions do you have? What is it that you're wondering about the drinking birds? You can go ahead and put your questions in the chat as well, and we can talk about some of those questions.
I don't want to put all my questions.
Okay, we have some in there. Let's see. Does the color of the water in the bird matter?
Oh, that's a good question.
Very good. Why does it keep going all day?
It's another good question.
Why is there some water in the bulb sometimes, but not always? Other questions. Is it water or something else in the bird? Does a type of liquid affect anything? Very good. Does it always need a glass of water to tip?
yeah, would Kool-Aid work?
Would Kool-Aid work? What else do you wonder? I wonder if I put different temperatures of water in the cup, will it matter? Would the mass or dimensions of the bird change anything? Very good. Does the temperature of the room matter? Good questions. We have some awesome questions here. What if we put it outside? Is it windy? You can see our questions are going and going and going. Does the hat color matter or the weight of the hat matter? We have some awesome questions. So these questions, you get the idea on how we start with a phenomenon and then it's going to lead to all these questions. And the next step then is going to be to create your own explanation. And in your own explanation, you're going to tell the audience what you think is causing the bird to constantly dip. So that's your starting explanation. So you start out with what you think it might be, and then the next step is going to be your experimental investigation. So once you have your idea of what you think it might be, then you can do some experiments. Looking at the list of questions that we came up with, what kind of investigations do you think we can do? Sarah asked, does the hat color matter or the weight of the hat? Okay, Vince said we could change the temperature of the water. Sarah says, does the hat color matter or the weight of the hat? How could we test that? How could we investigate that? We might have to break one apart. Let me tell you a funny story about that. Albert Einstein worked on this problem, trying to figure out how the drinking bird works. He worked on it for 3.5 months and he refused to take it apart. So he never came up with an explanation. Okay, Peggy says that we can time how long it takes in between dips. So we're gonna get our stopwatches out and we're gonna time it, or now we use our cell phones to do that, don't we?
That's right.
Once we learn how it's made, we can learn how to change it to make it faster or slower. Awesome. Excellent. We could add a small weight to the hat. And Debbie said we might have to break one apart. Okay, so we could break it apart. Can we heat the water in the bulb? Let me hold one. Oh, you might not be able to see this very well, but can you, let's see. Oh, there it is. As I hold it in my hand, can you see what's happening?
Oh, are you holding your hand around the bulb?
I am. I'm holding my hand around the bulb. And what happens to the liquid in here when I hold my hand around it?
It looks like a bubble is going up in the tube. We can't see the bulb part.
Yes. Can't see the bulb, but yes. Yes, you could see the bubble going up.
It's really cool. It reminds me of a lava lamp a little bit. So I wonder if it's really water in there, or maybe something a little bit thicker than water.
Or have you ever used those little hand boilers? Have you seen that? It's very similar to that. So can we heat the water in the bulb? Sorry,
Well,
almost
I
dropped that
wonder
one.
how hot that water could be, because if you think about it, if your hand, your body temperature is causing that much of a change in it, we'd have to be a little bit careful of how hot we made it maybe. Yeah.
Yes. Let's see. I want to take a look back at the chat and see if there's anything else. So prior, when we were talking about how to investigate it, Debbie said, can we put it outside? So we could change the temperature of the environment that it's in. Somebody else mentioned, does the temperature affect it? So we could change the temperature of the room that it is in, put it in the refrigerator, see what happens, put it somewhere warm. Let's see. Does it always need a glass or water to tip? How could we test that?
Well, you'd need two. So I hope the one that's broken isn't really broken.
I hope not too. That was the one I named Dippy. Okay, so I would need two, and then what would I do?
Have one with water and one without water, and time how many dips they do.
Time the dips. Okay, very good. Let's see what else is here. What if we used hot water in the glass and then cold water and time the dips? Very good. So again, we need a thermometer for that. We would have two different sources of water, two different birds possibly, or not even. We would need to record the temperature of the water, and then we would need to time the dips. Easy to do, right?
And what if they're the same?
What if they're the same? Then we would know what? If they're both the same, and we're testing them to see if the glass of water is needed, and we have one glass of water and one without water, then we know that water is not needed.
Yeah.
Yep. This is a perfect example of an investigation that almost any age could do.
Yes,
because you
definitely.
could be as simple as water or no water, and you could get a lot more complicated.
The Dippy birds can be purchased at the American Science Center.
Oh, is that where you got them the other
Geneva.
day?
In Geneva. It's not too far from here. Okay, so those are experimental investigations. We take our phenomenon, we come up with our ideas of how we think it's working. We do our investigations. Then once we complete our investigations, the next step is to create an argument from the evidence. We take all the data that we collected when we were doing our experiment, and at this point we come up with a claim. I think that the Dippy bird is always dipping because whatever your decision is based on your data. And then you're going to support it with your evidence. What data did you collect that is going to be your evidence? And then you'll also include your reasoning. So you're going to have a claim, evidence, reasoning. And I know that if you are in Mrs. McNally's class, you have been doing claim, evidence, reasoning already. So you are familiar with that. Yes.
And I know we're down to to just one person in here, but I think this is a great place to point out that making your claim is not the first thing you do with the science fair project.
Mm-hmm.
Yep,
You
that's
have,
right.
you have to do some investigating, and there's this old-fashioned science fair project procedure that everybody thinks that the first thing they need to do is make some kind of a claim or hypothesis, and that is simply not true. You start with a phenomenon. Exactly. I think we need to like definitely illustrate this.
Or a problem. Mm-hmm. A phenomenon or a problem.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, and I was also going to make mention, you know, does a student have to just display their evidence in a PowerPoint, or could they maybe provide video? I'm thinking for something like this, it might be really interesting to show the judges what actually happened. So having a little video of the different things that you're doing to the, you know, if you're deciding to do the tippy, that might be really enhance your argument.
Mm-hmm. So that is our drinking bird phenomenon. Going from phenomenon to your argument. And then here on this last page, we have a link to the activity. And Emily, there's a chance that you might see this in class.
I think the other thing that that I would also like to is that you know, you can pick anything as your project, any kind of inspiration. And so when if you come back and visit us over the next few Wednesdays, you're going to get to meet some different scientists. We're going to give you some ideas, but you can also get a hold of our team, and we can help you think through some ideas of projects you could do. You can ask your teachers for some projects, and so we just hope that you pick something that you're sort of passionate about. We'd like you to pick something that you think would be really fun to figure out. You'll also notice if you join us that we will never tell you the answer.
Mm-hmm.
We try really hard not to tell you the answer, but we'll expect you to provide us with the answer on March 20th. So shall I stop screen sharing? I think is that our last,
yes,
our last slide? All right. So do you guys have any questions for us? Is there anything we didn't explain well? Let me look really quick and see if there's any questions on our YouTube channel to make sure that nothing came through. Sometimes it's hard to manage everything.
Yeah, there's no Q&A and nothing in the chat.
Okay, yeah, there's nothing on our YouTube channel. So I think that we probably explained, my argument is, my claim is that we explained everything really well.
And there's evidence of that.
And the evidence is that either you know, we're not asking, or we really did do a good job.
Yeah, and I think we need to do somehow more promoting to get more people to log in. And I think next week, since numbers were pretty low, we'll have to kind of repeat the outline, the slide deck that you did. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, we can do that.
You know, and we'll get better and better at it each week, get through it in a couple minutes, because now coming up, we have like things each week that we're going to want to save time for. But yeah, I think it should work. I think that this might be, I think that there might be people that really truly prefer this, to do it this way with that pre-loaded slide deck to help along. And we could probably even add to it a little bit, bullet points to help people with their thinking without giving them ideas or giving anything away. I mean, it's their project, but if they're stuck on a slide, maybe a couple bullet points after each thing to help them get started. And I love the idea. I didn't even think about making a video, like make a video of you timing your, you know, soccer ball bounces, whatever you're doing. Like put a link in there for a video, and that could be part of your presentation where they just watch your video.
I don't want to speak for everybody else, but I know that I would be willing. So if you had your project and you need some guidance, or you wanted to practice your presentation before you give it on the 20th, just let our office know. And I know I'd be willing to watch your presentation and meet with you. I think everybody on the staff would also be willing to help you, work out some of the details so you don't feel quite as nervous. And we don't want you to feel prepared and happy to do this. All right. Is there anything else from anybody? So
No.
we want to
Emily,
see you
thanks. Emily, thanks for joining us. And if you need anything, you can talk to your teacher, talk to Mrs. McNally, and she can put you in touch with us.
Yeah. So join us next week for planetarium and to see a college lab. That could be pretty cool. That could be very, very cool. Thanks, everybody. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.